Hey, if you like all steel bodies built the old-fashioned way, that's what you're about to see, because now you're watching Gearz. Hey, welcome to Gearz. You know, 2007 is a special year because it's going to recognize a lot of milestones in the hot rod industry. For example, 40th anniversary of the '67 Chevy pickup. It's also the 40th anniversary of the Camaro and the Firebird. It's also the 50th anniversary of the '57 Chevy. Now, these cars are all special, but there is one car that is having its 75th anniversary this year that is so iconic that it pretty much single-handedly built the hot rod industry. I mean, it's the car everybody thinks about when you say hot rod. It's the one everybody wants, but they don't think they can have. I'm talking about the 32 Ford, the Roadster, the Coupe, and the Sedan. But before we show you that it is actually possible to own one of these cars, we have to ask a question. How does a car stay so influential and so popular for 75 years? Well, take a look. The 32 seemed destined for greatness right from the beginning. The body style was not only unique and really cool looking, but the Deuce also introduced the world to affordable V8 power in the form of the Ford Flathead V8. And almost immediately, people wanted to see how fast they'd go. Right after World War II, racing really began to grow, with stripped-down 32 Roadsters leading the way at places like Muroc and Bonneville. Even though the Dry Lakes races could be extremely hot and windy, it was worth it to be able to open up your car and see what she'd really do, flat out. The Deuce Roadster also became a star on the dirt tracks around the country, as people began to see just how much fun it was to just make left-hand turns. And if you think we have extreme sports now, try doing this with no roll bars or safety equipment like these guys did.
Talk about spectacular footing. Watch this.
But it wasn't until the 1950s that things really exploded with the introduction of drag racing. This brought about bigger, faster engines, and hot rods ruled the streets and the tracks. Now, right in the middle of all of this, a guy named Elvis started shaking his hips, and Chuck Berry picked up an electric guitar and started doing the duck walk, and the whole world went crazy for hot rods and rock and roll, with the 32 Ford and the electric guitar leading the way. Man, it was a wild time.
Ready, set, go, man, go. I got a gal that I love so. Ready.
By the mid-'60s, however, things had changed. Now the Deuce had some competition in the form of factory muscle cars and funny cars, which were changing the look of the typical hot rod. And as rock and roll got wilder and wilder, so did the fenderless Deuce Roadster, as it slowly morphed into a single-seated, long-nosed contraption called a top-fuel dragster. And driving these things were heroes like Prudhomme and Garlitz and Coletta and many more. And all of a sudden, it was over. I mean, things changed. Gas got expensive, and people started driving things like Pintos and Vegas and things like that. They took their electric guitars and got rid of them, started singing around a campfire, and right there, the Deuce could have died. And it probably would have, except that there was a young filmmaker named George Lucas. He came out with a movie called American Graffiti, and it just happened to feature a certain 32 five-window coupe that introduced the 32 to a whole new generation of hot rodders. From then on, man, the Deuce was on a roll. From the 80s through the 90s, all the way up to today, it's remained one of the most popular cars ever. Unfortunately, there's another problem. Over the years, the 32 has not only gotten more legendary, it's also gotten more expensive. And there's actually guys out there that are saying, if you don't have $100,000, you can't have a nice deuce. What? That's crazy. That kind of talk is taking the deuce right out of the hands of the guys that actually made it popular in the first place. The average hot rodder, the guy in his backyard. Fortunately, it's not true. It's a bunch of hogwash, and I'm going to prove it to you by showing you that you can have a nice 32 Roadster for a reasonable amount of money, but you got to build it yourself. Of course, that's what this show is all about.